I moved my son to a new school district mid-semester without telling my ex after his teacher called my parenting a liability. So some context first. My ex Marcus and I have been divorced for 3 years. We have one kid together, our son Eli, who's 8. The custody split is 60-40 with me having the majority. Marcus lives about 20 minutes away, which has always been fine. We don't get along great, but we manage. We keep things civil for Eli. Eli goes to Birchwood Elementary, which is where he's been since kindergarten. His second grade teacher this year is a woman named Mrs. Patton. I had a bad feeling about her from back to school night. She talked for 45 minutes about her own teaching philosophy and never once mentioned the actual kids. I told myself I was being unfair. October comes around and Eli starts saying he doesn't want to go to school. He's always loved school, so that alone was a flag. He said Mrs. Patton yells, not raises her voice, yells. I asked him to give me an example, and he said she yelled at a kid named Cooper for dropping his pencil case because it was too loud. Cooper cried. Eli said the whole class just sat there frozen. I sent an email asking to set up a meeting. Mrs. Patton responded 2 days later and said her schedule was full, but she'd reach out when she had availability. That was November 3rd. I didn't hear back. Then the week of the 18th, I got a call from the school at 2 in the afternoon. It was Mrs. Patton herself. She told me Eli had been having trouble focusing and following directions, and that she'd had to redirect him multiple times that week. I asked what redirecting looked like. She said she'd had to raise her voice because he wasn't listening the first time. I asked her if she often raises her voice at the kids. She paused and said, when the situation calls for it. Then she said, and this is the part I keep coming back to, she said, honestly, the inconsistency at home is a liability in the classroom. I can only do so much when the parenting isn't consistent. I said, can you say that again? She said, children from split households sometimes have a harder time with structure. I thanked her for calling and hung up. I sat in my car in the parking lot of the grocery store for probably 15 minutes. Then I called my sister. She talked me down from my first 3 instincts. Then I got home, put Eli to bed, and started looking at schools. We live close enough to the Millview district that I'd looked into it before. A friend's daughter goes there and loves it. I called the district office the next morning and asked about enrollment mid-year. They said it was possible depending on address verification and availability. I gave them my address. They said Eli would qualify. I asked how soon. They said as early as 2 weeks if I had the paperwork. I drove to the district office on my lunch break. I brought Eli's birth certificate, his immunization records, proof of residence. The enrollment coordinator was incredibly helpful. She said there was a spot in a 3rd grade teacher's class. A woman named Miss Bauer, who she personally vouched for, said parents requested her every year. I signed everything that Friday. I did not call Marcus. I want to be really clear about why. Our custody agreement says we make major educational decisions jointly. I know that, but I also know what happens when I try to bring something to Marcus as a concern. He minimizes it every single time. When I told him Eli was coming home anxious in September, he said Eli was probably just adjusting. When I told him Eli had stopped wanting to eat breakfast before school, Marcus said he ate fine at his place. There is a pattern where I raise something and he explains to me why I'm overthinking it. I've been doing this for 3 years and I knew exactly how the call would go. He'd tell me Mrs. Patton was probably just having a hard year. He'd tell me switching schools mid-semester would be harder on Eli than staying. He'd say let's give it until after the holidays, and Eli would go back to that classroom on Monday. So I didn't call. Eli's first day at Millview was the Monday after Thanksgiving break. I picked out his new backpack the Sunday before, and we went through everything together. He was nervous. He asked if his old friends would forget him. I told him probably not and that he'd make new ones too. He thought about that and said okay. I picked him up at 3 p.m. He came out smiling. He said his new teacher let them pick their own seats, and she has a class fish named Gerald. He talked about Gerald the entire drive home. Marcus found out that Wednesday, Birchwood called him when Eli was marked absent Monday and Tuesday before they updated the records. He called me at 6:45 in the evening, which is Eli's bath time, and I could already hear it in his voice. Did you pull Eli out of Birchwood? I said yes, without telling me. I said yes. He said, you can't do that. We have a legal agreement. I told him I knew, and that I'd made a decision I felt was necessary for Eli's well-being, and that I was willing to talk about it. He wasn't interested in talking about it. He wanted to know why I thought I could just make a unilateral call on something like this, why I didn't trust him, why I keep acting like his opinion doesn't matter. I said, Marcus, his teacher called our parenting a liability. He stopped. I said, she called the inconsistency of a split household a classroom liability. Our 8-year-old is in her class every day listening to that woman decide who he is. I'm not waiting until after the holidays. He said I still should have called him. I said, would you have agreed to switch him? He didn't answer. He's filed a complaint with our family mediator.